portions, and the legislature then wanted to make it easier to vote, especially for senior citizens. So what did they do? They created early voting. And they said there's going to be a 14-day period. So it's going to be much more convenient to vote. And that was so successful in the last presidential election that by election day, 40% of the vote had been cast before election day. The supervisor of elections loved it because then they only had, in one 12-hour period of election day, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., to actually administer to 60% of the vote instead of 100% crammed into that 12 hours. And of course, it was a great convenience to so many citizens, especially to senior citizens. But now, the legislature, under the guise of saying that we are keeping the same number of hours, even though we're restricting it from 14 to 8 days, no. The extra hours, the supervisors have to pay time and a half overtime. And none of the supervisors have the budget that can accommodate that. So they have restricted now to 8 days. Who's that going to hurt? That's going to hurt a lot of senior citizens. But that's not all. Because always the early voting law has been all the way up through and including the Sunday before the Tuesday election. It now stops on the Saturday. The 8 days stops on the Saturday before the Tuesday election. And oh, guess who traditionally after church on Sunday goes down and votes on the Sunday before the Tuesday election? You see the pattern? The pattern. I wish that were all, but it's not. What about the part, if you happen to move since you first registered to vote into another county and you appear on election day and your identification is not the same address in the same county of where you are now registered to vote, you will be given not a ballot, but a provisional ballot under the new suppressed voter law. And the history tells us in the last presidential election, only one half of the provisional ballots were counted. Guess who that affects? You remember all the young people that suddenly got involved in elections and politics and government for the first time? And you remember all those kids on the college campuses that got excited about government and politics again and went down and registered to vote where on that Tuesday they were going to be in class at their university? Not under the new voting law, because when they get down there, they pull out their driver's license for identification, and it's going to show the address of where they grew up, their driver's license back at their parents' home. And they're going to get a provisional ballot that may or may not count. Now, this is the nonsense that's going on. And this is going on not just in Florida, but 13 other states. There is a concerted pattern by the right-wing elements to suppress voters. Our law is the worst of all the 14 states. But you see, and even that supervisor of elections in Volusia County, when she found out what happened to Jill Cicerelli, Supervisor Ann McFall has openly criticized the law as egregious and unenforceable. And so, this voting law is a mockery of democracy. And that's why I've asked the governor, I don't know that it's going to do any good, but it's my responsibility to ask the governor to please go back and get the legislature and to get rid of it. I want to tell you what a great honor that you have given Grace and me over the years of public service. I can tell you that it's a more difficult time when you can't get people of goodwill to come and reason together. And it's a lot more frustrating when you have gridlock, and that's the order of the day, is gridlock. But there are some things that are worth us standing up and fighting for. And this is the very underpinning of our country. Our ability to express ourselves, to come together, and our ability to have the right to vote, and to know that that vote is going to be counted as we intended. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Vice President so eloquently gave us a call to arms, this is time that we've got to take back our country. This is a time for us to stand up and march and not let the extremist elements of this country take over. This is a time for us to stand on the long-standing principles that we know is right, fairness. Ladies and gentlemen, you have given me the great privilege of public service. Thank you. Let us all go together and bring back some common sense back into our government.